Hey friends, Adam here. Making these intros always makes me laugh, so I'm going to leave that laughter in there for this one. I'm going to be sending you this solo episode today on Wednesday, July 24th, touching on really the experiences of the anxious generation. I'm not talking about our teenagers or our kids, although that's going to be a separate episode. I'm talking about us parents. I do believe that this generation of parents is also an anxious generation of parents. And I want to start talking about those felt experiences. So I'm going to be doing that in this episode. I hope you enjoy it. Please remember to join the Substack at slowtechpod.substack.com. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as it helps in the algorithmic ways. So be kind, be slow, be humble, and have a great rest of the week. Okay, so my inspiration for this episode has to do with my time spent with an app called October Health. October Health is based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I've been facilitating these tech-focused, digital well-being focused, emotional well-being focused conversations in the app. We call them sessions. They are educational in nature, but they are conversations. And so I wanted to not necessarily bring you the experience of that app, because what happens in that app is particular to the community in that app. And after 9 or 10 months now of doing, I think, 3 times per week, 2 to 4 times per week in general, conversations around these topics, I feel confident and humble, of course, and inspired to generate these types of thoughts, audio essays, almost meditations, if you will, within this podcast community at large. So let's start. Let's start this time together. The way we participate in this, again, it's really up to you. You can be listening to this while you're multitasking. You can be taking a seat. You maybe would like to grab a piece of paper and a writing utensil and maybe sort of jot your feelings down or observations or notes. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. But I would like to start things off with a really brief grounding exercise. Really just through the means of conscious breathing. Now, we may have heard of breathing exercises or breathing techniques like box breathing. So there are some really wonderful structured breathing styles and breathing techniques. This is more of an unstructured style. It's really just about noticing the fact that we are breathing. So the way I like to engage in this, and I'd like to invite you, if you have the bandwidth and the space and the focus, the ability to give your undivided attention to this, is by taking a seat, closing your eyes, and just breathe. We're just going to be focusing on inhaling through our nose and exhaling through your nose or your mouth, whichever is more comfortable for you. We don't really have to focus on slowing it down when we focus our attention on breathing in this simple way, in a way that we've been doing for time immemorial. It will naturally slow down. So again, inhale through the nose And exhale through the nose or the mouth. Personally, I like to exhale through my mouth. That way I can sigh, which also adds to de-stressing qualities as well. And just do this. Let's do this for a minute or two. And in this minute or two, with your eyes closed, just cycling through these breaths, you get to suddenly notice things that are happening right beneath the surface. We get to notice our other senses, namely smell, sound, touch. We take in so much information through our eyes, through our relationship with our screens, namely our smartphones. A lot of the times that information is muddled and overwhelming and touches on a lot of really intense emotions, or would make us feel numb to our emotions. So, again, being in this receptive state, taking this opportunity in this conversation, in this episode, really a self conversation, to be in this receptive state. So, let's take a few more breaths like this. Remember, just take comfort in noting that there's nothing else that needs to be done in this moment. Just breathing, just feeling our bodies. There might be comfort, there might be relaxation, there might be calm. You might be coming out of something tense. Maybe there's something tense in your peripheral. Um, Maybe there's frustration, confusion, angst, anxiety that you're dealing with for whatever reason, personal reasons, professional reasons. Again, there's no judgment on the story. We're just noticing the things that are there. So let's take one more breath and let out a nice sigh on that exhale. And if you, like me, have had your eyes closed for this, open your eyes again and notice three things in the space that you're in. It could be an object, a texture, a shape, it could be a color. Great. Thanks for doing that. Hope it was relaxing and enjoyable for you as much as it was for me. I always find it really humbling to take those 1 or 2 or 3 minutes to really slow down, to have this kind of intentional pause, to slow down the cadence of speech, the speed of thoughts, and to really, again, take in information in a felt way. Because so much of what we take in is through our eyes and our ears, and that's important. But there's also, again, a really important uh, opportunity here to take in information through our bodies, through our emotions. In a way, what we're doing here is we're kind of having this sort of self check in. What's going on? How am I feeling? What do I do with that information? What do I do with those feelings? Which really brings us to the importance of today's episode on how we as parents are, in fact, an anxious generation of parents. We've been living in relationship to these devices for 15 plus years. We've been raising our children in some proximity or adjacent to these devices, either in direct relationship or adjacent to. And the way that we relate to these devices has oftentimes a really huge impact on how we parent our kids, namely through surveillance apps, screen time settings, parental controls, YouTube algorithms, social media access. This isn't going to be a sort of how-to guide in any way. I don't really have solutions because I don't really know the solutions. What I'm trying to create here in this episode is an opportunity to feel, to interpret those feelings, to take note of our relationships to our devices, how we can improve upon those relationships, and how the improvement of those relationships will have a kind of overflow effect on our relationships with our families, our kids, our teens. But again, most importantly, right now, for ourselves, we have to acknowledge that for all of the focus that we've been placing on worrying about our kids' tech use, which is important, we have to also reflect that back to ourselves. Sort of like that metaphor on an airplane, that safety message. How does it go? Should cabin pressure suddenly change, oxygen masks will drop from the ceiling above you. Please be sure to put your mask on before you help someone else with theirs. So, again, that's the impetus for this conversation, this episode today. Okay. So, how did we get here? How did we get here as an anxious generation? Well, again, let's take a step back. Let's do a retrospective. We've been living in this hyper quickening world of devices, information, uh, and an ever shifting media landscape for quite a long time. It hasn't been forever, but you may as well say that 15, 20, 25 years, maybe 30 years by some measure, is basically an eternity these days. It hasn't always been this way. For those of us parents who are, let's say, above the age of 35, we remember what growing up for some part of our childhood or adolescence was like free from devices. Personally, as a currently 40-year-old dad in the kind of elder millennial category, I recall being, again, growing up here in Los Angeles, I recall being a kid, again, free from devices. At some point, probably around 11 or 12, maybe, there was a home computer, there was a desktop computer that started to have some kind of dial up modem access. I remember the first time I ever surfed the web was in my fifth grade class. We went to the school library and we all logged on the World Wide Web. Um, I don't remember it going anywhere special. I don't remember it being captivating or nowhere near as captivating as surfing the web is today. Of course, we don't even think about surfing the web. There's no more logging on or logging off. We're always on. We live in this always on culture, right? The internet permeates so many aspects of our lives because we're always on it. Um, so, again, for those of us who are, let's say, above the age of 35, we recall some part of our childhood or adolescence to a certain point, free from devices. Just to paint you a picture, I think when I started high school in the late 90s, what was it, 1997? Believe that there were pagers and beepers being used. By the time I finished high school in June of 2001, pretty much everyone, including myself, had those Nokia cell phones. What is it, the 5210? So we were already texting a lot by the end of high school. Of course, less than 2 months later, the events of 9/11 occurred. And really that gave birth to what we now know as the attention economy. If you want to learn more about the attention economy, you should check out Shoshana Zuboff's book, Surveillance Capitalism. It's a behemoth, but it's important because it really permeates our everyday mundane experiences on the web, whether it's as innocuous as a Google search, an Amazon cart, or posting on social media. But I digress. So, again, a little bit of a retrospective. The iPhone is, as of right now, 17 years old. The App Store is probably 14 years old tops. Um, Facebook as a platform began 20 years ago. Of course, it started out as the Facebook, and its sole purpose when it was launched by Zuckerberg was to be accessed only by fellow Harvard students to rate each other's attractiveness through the posting of photos. So Facebook is 20 years old. And really, home internet, the ubiquitousness of internet access, whether it's internet cafes or Wi Fi everywhere, it's somewhere in the 20 to 30-year realm, give or take. So, of course, there's a lot more nuance. I'm not touching on all of these sort of important chronological points in time, just giving a really basic retrospective because it's important to recognize how we as parents today, our experiences, our decisions, our worries, so much of them are fueled by uh, our emotions, namely anxiety and worry. We see a world with increased violence, volatility, division, instability, chaos, pandemics, um, authoritarians, dictators, surveillance tech. We are less trusting of each other. Really, I think more importantly, we are less trusting of ourselves. And that is worrisome. However, it's something that we can steer. We can steer towards trust. We can steer towards, if we can't steer towards total factual stability, we can at least steer towards treading water in a more efficient way, right? So, how do we start to do this? Well, I think it's important to engage in real, thoughtful, slow discussion with ourselves, with each other, with our significant others, with our kids, with our teenagers or tweens, about realistic timelines of things. Here's what you have access to. Here's what I don't permit access to. And here are the reasons why. We often forget the internet is not a thing, it is a place. And if you have some real hesitations about sending your, let's say, 6-year-old down the road a mile to the store to buy some fruit or candy or run an errand, uh, a mile or two away, out of sight. If you have hesitations about that, then why wouldn't you have hesitations about handing a device over like a tablet to surf the web, to surf YouTube? Because the same types of risks, dangers, really bad actors in a way that exist in that hypothetical scenario of your kid physically walking away to run that errand. Um, there are similar risks, very real risks, in, again, just handing the device over without some kind of safety net, parental control, emotional intelligence, awareness of the risks. So, yeah, it's worth repeating. The internet is not a thing, it's a place. And unfortunately, how it's been proliferated through really in service of capital in this hyper capitalist reality we live in, it is mostly an unregulated and unsafe space. Of course, as I record this episode this week, there are amazing youth and well-being activists, courageous activists, in the nation's capital this week, advocating for, I think, the Senate to pass KOSA, KOSA, which is an acronym for the Kids Online Safety Act, which would, for the first time ever, be able to draft laws protecting the most vulnerable children and tweens and teens, online, namely from um, social media companies, which utilize, specific algorithms to extract really sensitive data points. Okay. So, what am I getting at here? Noticing how we feel, making a habit of noticing how we're feeling somewhere in the sea of the sort of go, 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 everyday hustle culture of living in this so called modern life. Finding or creating moments of some semblance of stability, treading water, pausing. I feel like it always starts with pausing, really. To be able to pause, notice how we're feeling, to be able to pause and engage in some kind of back and forth or conversation with our kids, to remember that we are we are the models of tech use for our kids. You know, as they say, monkey see, monkey do. We have to be aware that the way we showcase our tech habits will probably be emulated by our kids. So, again, this isn't about advocating for any kind of anti tech. I'm not advocating to throw the tech away, get rid of it altogether, and run away and move to the Scottish Highlands. No, I think what I'm getting at here, to really start this episode off with the intention of it being part of a series of episodes. And I'm really asking for your feedback as you listen to this, as you're feeling into your feelings. Perhaps you're jotting some thoughts down on that piece of paper. Engage, send me a message. Um, give me some feedback on an episode like this. Let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what your worries, wishes, or goals are, and we can get into those on an episode. If you're free to, you can join me. Maybe send a voicemail, or uh, I'll invite you on. So again, to keep it somewhat succinct and orderly in terms of thoughts, because I'm kind of really riffing this in an organic way. We need to start to talk out loud about our feelings of anxiousness and worry, because this is, in fact, the world that we have built, the world that we currently co inhabit, and how we're going to bring about either the change that we desire as a community of parents, whether we want those changes to reflect on certain philosophies like digital minimalism, embracing a less is more perspective or a less is more lifestyle, deciding either on a school-wide community level or in a um, school system wide level. Like, for instance, in recent weeks, LAUSD passed a rule to be able to enact a ban on smartphones starting in 2025. I'm going to be talking about that too, with guests on future episodes. These things are finally coming to roost. These thoughts, these worries, what we've been seeing, what we've been exposed to in terms of, social media, whistleblowers, all these things are coming to roost right now. And it's very important that we, again, take stock on how we're really feeling about these observations, these decisions, things that we're mulling over. And these decisions should take time. If we make these hasty decisions in a highly reactive risk state, um, it might not be the actual decision that we've been meaning to make. So it is important to take our time with these big decisions. Decisions like, when do I get my kid their own smartphone? When do I get my kid their own phone? And, do I want GPS? Do I not want GPS? Do I want to subscribe to surveillance tracking for my kid or not? How's our relationship doing? Do I trust them as much as I trust myself? Again, these are really, really complex and nuanced conversations and decisions to be made that are unfortunately being cashed in on by these apps, these companies that sell us this kind of surveillance tech. Again, I'm not saying they're bad or evil. They're just capitalizing on the current times. It's understandable. So to keep this again under 30 minutes, I'm going to stop. I welcome you to just take a deep breath and exhale that deep breath and have a think. Have a think about these questions. Jot your ideas down. Uh, in the notes here on the episode, I'll invite you to leave a message, comment, ask questions. However you choose to engage can help steer this conversation and steer future episodes. Maybe there's a particular expert out in the field you'd like me to bring on an interview to talk about this. So please do so in any fashion. Of course, please join the Substack at slowtechpod.substack.com. Also, I'm active on Instagram. If you follow at Slow Tech Podcast. And I hope this was an educational, thoughtful, or thought provoking, at least inviting episode to be a part of. Let me know what you think about it. And either way, here we are. It's July 24th. I hope you have a kind rest of the week and, rest of the month of July. And wherever you are in the world, again, be kind, be humble, be slow, be considering, and see you in the next episode. Thanks.